Well,
So where do we begin?
This is April Fool's Day.
Oh my, that's why you did this to me.
2002. I did that to you because it's April Fool's Day. This is, yes, it's not really tape in there. We're just fooling you. I'm Suzanne Gosman, and this is Teresa Harrington, who will tell us where she was born and how she came to live in Montauk, and we're going to have a discussion about her life in Montauk since 1949.
1949.
Oh.
Born in Ireland, County Roscommon, 1923.
What town in County Roscommon?
Was a little village, a townland called Mantua. And 12 families in the village.
Wow.
Were known as the 12 Apostles.
Really?
And every house had, I think the least number of children would have been 8, from 8 to 12.
Wow, a lot of children in 12 families.
Yes. So we kept the local school.
I bet.
I mean, it was incredible.
Sure.
Walk 2 miles to school. No matter what the weather it was, and I don't know, we were never ill. Never had colds. If you were really wet, the old schoolmaster, if you were lucky, would let you stand in front of the fireplace and a cloud of steam would go up from your clothes.
Wow.
Sit in the classroom all day long.
Yeah.
Never,
you learned poetry in Irish schools?
We did. We were taught, I'm sure like Mary told you, we were taught Shakespeare. And we were taught good grammar, good English. And later when I left the national school, went to the convent, the dear old sisters. And what they didn't teach us in the national school, the nuns did. So by and large, for that time, we got a very, very good education. Never had a chance to go to college, but I always figured that we had the equivalent of probably 2 years of college education.
Yeah, because the school was so good, your high school was so good.
It was, and of course we were taught in those days under the English system. Later. Ireland got its independence of a sort. So then in 1949 I had to make a big decision what I was going to do with my life. All my sisters had left home, gotten married. And
where were you in the order of 12?
I was second to last.
Wow.
My brother Pat was a year and a half younger than I. So it was time to move out. So it was during the war. My sister Una had come home on vacation from England and talked me into going to England to nursing, which she was a nurse. So I thought that was not a bad idea. And then I had an aunt who lived in New Jersey, had written to me and asked me if I would like to come to the United States, that she would, send my papers and sign a bond and whatever was required in those days. So I had to toss a coin. Heads for the United States, tails for England, heads came up, and here I am.
Isn't that interesting?
That's how I decided.
That's a great story.
So I came over on the SS Washington. It had been a troop carrier during the war, had been converted back to a passenger ship. Took 4.5 days, really rough weather, was seasick for 3 days, and arrived in New York Harbor on July 1st, the hottest day, wearing a suit.
Oh my.
I had no idea what the temperature would be. And then my aunt and my cousin met me and had to go down into the subway, went to West Orange. And I thought, oh, good heavens. Where am I? What have I done?
Which aunt? Was this your father's mother?
It was a sister of my father's, Mary Kelly. And she died a couple of, maybe 3-4 years after I came here. But I hated West Orange. And she had 5 cats.
Ooh.
And I called my cousin, Peg Mulholland. Peg came the next day to see me, and I left with Peg. And on 4th of July, I arrived out in Montauk.
Oh, you did?
I came on the train. My cousin, 2 cousins.
Peg brought you out?
Her husband, Jim. And my cousin.
Now, where did they live?
They all lived in New Jersey in East Orange. So I arrived in Montauk. No, Amagansett.
4th of July.
4th of July in Amagansett.
In 1949.
In 1949.
Isn't that something?
And
That's wonderful.
I never went back to Jersey.
Never went back to Jersey. Wow. You know, a lot of people do that, but you did it really quickly.
Yes, I did. And then, of course, I started working at the old grocery store.
Oh.
But my brother-in-law, Bob, had, as you well know, they supplied the fishing boats, the commercial boats with groceries. And
Now, you
So-
okay, let's go back. When you came to Amagansett,
yeah.
who did you stay with? Who was
Oh,
there?
my
Why did you
sister.
come to Amagansett?
I came to Amagansett because my sister Mary Gosman was there. Had never met Mary till I came to the United States. I could have
You had never
I could
met
have met her in the street and I wouldn't have known who she was.
because she left when
She left, I was
she
two, I think I was about 2.5 years old.
when Mary left. Isn't that
And
interesting?
and my brother Pat was only a baby. He was only,
Right.
I think a year, maybe a year old. So I never met Mary
Isn't that interesting?
until I came to Amagansett.
Oh, that's so fascinating.
And all of her children, Roberta was in high school, John. John and Roberta, I think, were going to high school. Emmett was in grade school. Dickie was 6 years of age.
Wow.
And Billy was, I think Billy was
been
9.
9? Oh, isn't that amazing?
They were all little.
They were all little
And
kids.
Sandy was, I don't know, Sandy I
been
guess was
between
about
Billy
7.
and
He was
Dickie,
between
yeah.
Billy and Dickie, about 7 or 8.
Right. Huh.
So I kind of grew up with them.
Yeah, I guess you really did.
And we
yeah.
had absolutely wonderful times.
You were how old?
I was 26.
When you came,
When I
you
came,
were 26.
I was 26
huh?
years old.
Wow. Wow.
So I kind of grew up with all the Gosmans.
Sure you did. Sure
It
you
was
did.
fun.
And you moved in with them and lived with them?
Lived there for for a couple of summers and then went to work
Okay.
down at the dock. They had started.
Let's
the,
get a little background on Bob Gosman had rented a dock down in
Yes,
Montauk.
he had owned at that time all that property by old Charlie Bonner.
He rented it from Charlie
And later, of course, they bought the property and they started out with the old clam bar. Or, gosh, Helen Hagner, Mike Nicoletti, and myself worked in that place for quite a few years.
Boy. But you started at the fish.
I started
where
at
you packed fish out?
where they had a little grocery store. And I have to tell you this, I had I think it was Dickie Edwards, came into the store one morning and he wanted a white owl. And I hadn't a clue what a white owl was, and I didn't want him to know. I didn't know what he was talking about. So I'm looking under the shelves, and he said, well, Bob always keeps them under the cash register there. I'm looking and looking. I didn't see any white owls. So I said, I'm sure, I said, the only explanation is that we don't have any. So the minute he was gone, I went out and I asked Bob, I said, what in heaven's name is a white owl? He said, a cigar. So after that whole day, believe me,
You
I
learned it.
looked and I checked out all the inventory and found out where everything was and what it was.
Great.
But I've never forgotten that. I
That's
did not
wonderful.
know. I thought a white owl was a bird.
Yeah, right. Makes sense. Certainly makes sense. That's great.
So spent that whole summer. And after that, of course, they opened up the clam bar.
Clam bar. Was that the 1950 then
I
they
think that
opened the
was,
clam
was
bar?
that 1950 or 50? Gosh, 50 or 52. But, give or
Somewhere
take,
around
give
there,
or
yeah.
take a year. And it was just an old, one of those army buildings that they had bought.
Huh. Oh, from down on from down by Navy Road?
And down on Navy Road, I believe. I may be wrong about that. But they had two of them. We had the old lunch counter in one, and then they had the bar. And no seats at the bar. If you went in to have a beer or
stood
whatever, you had to stand up at the bar. And an old jukebox in the corner. Put your quarter in, or 10 cents or whatever it was. I think you got 5 plays for a quarter. And it was fun.
Wow, I guess it
really
was fun. I bet it was fun.
It was
You all
fun.
used to hang out there all the time. And
Oh yeah, and lots of
who'd come in? Who did you? Who
Well,
would-
of course, that was when they were running the train specials for the fishing, and we used to
right.
open up real early, 5 o'clock in the morning, or maybe earlier, and all these hordes of people get off the train
Yeah.
come down to the harbor, get on the boats.
How many boats were down there when
Oh,
in around 1950? 'Cause-
God, there were quite a few.
yeah.
There must have been at least half a dozen, 6 or 8 boats.
Do you remember the names of any of them?
Oh, God.
The open boats they were? That had come around from Fort Pond Bay, I guess, to
No, they didn't, because they had where the patio in front of the main restaurant is now. That was a dock for the open boats.
The open boats.
They moved. They moved from up. Where were they at?
Fort
maybe
Pond
Pond
Bay.
Bay.
Yeah, right.
So they moved down there,
Uh-huh.
and that's where they all went fishing from.
Huh.
And
Was the Marlin 2 around then?
I
or any
think
of
I
those
think the
boats?
Marlin 2 was, and oh gosh, I should have looked up all the names of the boats. Isn't that horrible? I can't even remember.
Sorry.
What was the name? I remember Captain George Moore and Dick Schultz and so many of them. See what happens to you when you get old? You lose your memory.
Well, we're here to jog it a little bit. So that's great.
But Montauk was so beautiful.
Yeah, tell us about it.
No motels on the beach, just beautiful rolling sand dunes. And all the houses where Culloden houses are now. I used to love to go pick beach plums, wild grapes.
You're famous for your beach plum jelly and your grape jellies. Teresa is totally famous for what she makes.
It was absolutely beautiful, beautiful, beautiful countryside. And then look what they did to it.
Yeah, really.
Bulldozers came in, ripped the whole place apart, built all those houses. I know people have to live, we need houses, but do they have to build so many?
Right.
But Montauk was really nice. And the one thing I remember was remember the restaurant on the corner where Fun's hardware store is now? They had a restaurant and they made the most incredible ice cream.
Well, I don't, and we haven't even heard about that in all these interviews. What was the name of it?
Isn't that horrible? But I can't remember they had a bakery. They had a bakery as well.
Really? Really?
I have to find out the name of the people. Ask.
Yeah.
Who can we ask?
Who could we ask? John Fund didn't even tell us that, and we interviewed him.
It was, and they used to deliver. They used to deliver bread. They were. They had an absolutely super bakery. Absolutely.
Wow.
And they lived over the bakery.
Really?
They had
Bowler's
Bakery.
Bowler's
I knew I would
Bakery.
remember. Remember Bowler's?
Yeah.
You know, you're young because you were near
I didn't come till 1970, so 1967,
so
I missed all of
that.
that.
No, that was Bowler's Bakery. They had an absolutely wonderful bakery. And of course, the Shag one was the best one.
Right.
With Mary and Walter.
Yes.
We went there every single Tuesday for pot
You did,
roast.
yeah.
They had the best pot roast on the east end of Long Island.
That's
fantastic.
great.
Fantastic.
Now so what kind of social life did you have in those days? What did you do when you first came?
There wasn't very much to do.
Yeah,
Really. You went to the movies.
Went to the movies.
You went to the movies in East
Hampton.
Hampton, went to Sam's Club for pizza and a beer, which you could get to go to the movies. You could go to Sam's, have pizza and a beer for probably about $2.50.
Right.
You can't even buy a slice of pizza for $2.50 today. But no, there wasn't that much. There wasn't anything much going on out here. So you just hibernated in the winter and worked all summer.
Yeah.
It's just about what it was.
But most of your friends then were in Amagansett, in the neighborhood up there?
And of course, Montauk was deserted Labor Day.
Yeah.
But everybody left. And gosh, you could shoot a cannon down Main Street and not hit a seagull.
You remember seeing the cattle drives when they used to bring the cattle?
We built our house, our first little house we built in Soundview on Duryea Avenue. And then a friend of ours who was in the building business over in Southold, Bill Wells, decided we should build a bigger house. And we had bought the property on Essex Street. So we built the house, and I remember we had just moved into the house when the last cattle drive. We saw them taking the cattle off, and where Jack Craft's house is now, we saw that they brought all of the cattle, drove all the cattle right to the north side of our house and down to the Dude Ranch.
Now you have to tell us who we is. We didn't find out about when you got married and how you
Jim.
courted.
Well,
and
I met Jim. I met Jim.
How'd you
I
meet
guess,
Jim?
At Gosman's lunch counter. Where else?
A great meeting place. That's where I met my
And
husband.
decided to get married. Went to Florida. Got married in Florida, Fort Lauderdale.
You got married in Fort Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale. And that was that was about it. And we rented. Came back from Florida, I guess 1952. Rented a house from next door to Mary's in Amagansett. An apartment in a house. And after that, we, a couple of years after that, or the following year, we built our little house in Soundville.
Oh, nice.
And then after a couple of more years, we built the house on Essex Street.
Right.
And
Now, where did
there I am.
Jim come from? What's
Jim
his
was
background?
born in
Jim
Bayside.
Sarno, this is.
Jim Sarno. He was born in Bayside, New York. And his father loved to fish. And he bought a charter boat and moved out.
His father was a
moved
charter.
out to Southold or to Greenport.
Oh,
And Jim's grandparents lived in Cutchogue.
oh.
So they used to come out
okay.
every weekend. So that's how he got into he loved fishing. Jim cared about nothing in this world, having a boat under him, being
that
out
was
in the
it, huh?
ocean.
Yeah.
And then after he got out of the charter business, went to work for Mr. Aiken for Hudson Wire Company, and in the
As a captain.
he was a captain. The boat was run for the entertainment of their customers.
Oh,
And,
right. Right.
Lucky for us because we had the opportunity of meeting absolutely wonderful people
Oh, I bet.
through them, because they were, and being in the wire business, they did a lot of business with the United States government.
Oh.
And their wire was on the LEM when it landed on the moon.
Really?
Yes.
No
They
kidding.
had
Wow.
big write-ups in the paper about that. It was
Oh.
wonderful.
Oh.
And remember when President Eisenhower started the people-to-people thing, getting people from different countries together.
Okay.
And all the best anglers from every country
Really?
in Europe, New Zealand, Australia, they all came to the old yacht club, and they used to have these wonderful tournaments.
Oh, really?
And we had the opportunity of meeting three of World War II admirals,
Really?
Nimitz, Boyle, and
Really?
Red Handley.
My goodness.
See,
Oh.
Mr. Aiken used to have national security meetings at their house
No
every
kidding.
July, and they'd have all these people from Washington.
Wow.
So all of this was started, after the war.
Huh.
But it was interesting. We had a
Yeah.
great life, fishing,
That's-
going to the Bahamas, take the boats south.
Wow.
The winter time, go to Key West.
Wow.
They would send all the customers down,
Isn't that
go to the
wonderful?
Bahamas, over to Bimini, Cat Cay.
Oh, you must have had some fun then.
It was fantastic.
You must have had a lot of fun.
I
with
had
that.
many good sunburns to remind me of it.
Oh,
No,
that's
it
great.
was, they were good times.
And you took to boating. You liked being on a boat?
I loved it.
Yeah.
Spent 27 years of my life on a boat and never learned to swim.
You still don't know how to
And I
swim?
still can't swim. And it never occurred to me I might fall overboard. If I fell,
And you were
never
the good-
never wore a life preserver either.
Really? Isn't that amazing? That's amazing. Golly. So when did you marry? When did you? what year did you marry?
1952.
52. Okay. Then you
So,
went.
I mean, it was simple life.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We
Nice.
had, lived Montauk, spent summers in Montauk and winters in Florida.
Right. Right. And that
We-
was that from the beginning.
yeah.
You always went to
Yeah,
Florida.
always went to Florida. We
And
started
did-
out living in Fort Lauderdale, and then we moved up to the Palm Beaches.
And you had a.
And then we had. we
you
moved
owned
up
houses there too.
We bought an apartment in the village of North Palm Beach, right on the Intercoastal Waterway.
Oh,
So,
nice.
and then
Sounds pretty idyllic.
After Jim died in 1982, I kept the apartment a couple of years, and then sold it and moved back to Montauk.
Right.
And here I am.
Yes. And you have worked steadily. You worked for the Aiken family yourself, didn't
Well,
you? For
yeah,
many years?
for a little while until they got, filled in till they got somebody to run the place. But
Yeah.
we were family.
Yeah.
We really were.
Yeah.
But, and I've worked at the restaurant at Gosman's forever.
You've always worked since I've known you. You've worked there.
Forever.
So that's it. she's one of the mainstays. You're absolutely
I don't
one
know
of the
about that,
mainstays.
but-
Sure you are. Sure you
But
are.
it was fun. It was wonderful watching the business develop from such small beginnings to what it is today. I mean, that was
Yes.
truly the American dream.
Yeah. Now, when you came, Mary was actually cooking, right?
She was. She had, well,
When it started,
she started
cooked.
Mike Nicoletti. I don't know if you
okay.
remember. I'm sure
I know Faith.
you know
I knew
Faye, his
yes,
daughter.
and
I remember
Jimmy,
them
yeah.
when they were all born from the babies.
Isn't that amazing? Excuse
Yeah.
me.
But, Mary used to go down there in the morning. Oh, we used to go crack of dawn. And Mike Nicoletti, Helen Hagner, Mary, and myself.
That was the crew, huh?
That was it.
How many tables were there when you started?
Well, actually, when we started, there weren't any tables. There was just a counter. The people stood up and just grabbed their scrambled eggs and their bacon or sausage or whatever they were.
And did you make
and
clam chowder in
sandwiches.
those days?
Michael made wonderful clam chowder.
Oh, really?
He used to make wonderful clam. And he made all the pies, baked pies.
Wow.
And all we served really was hamburgers, hot dogs, sandwiches, and chowder. That was it.
And in those days, there was the Shagwang and there was Pilbro's.
Oh, Mrs.
Now,
Pill.
Mrs.
Wasn't
Pro-
that the best?
Mrs. Pilbro, Ellen was telling us, Mrs. Pilbro and Mary were very fond of each other.
Oh, they were.
And she said they used to get together and they were so funny when they talked. She said they were great. They were great when they'd have these hilarious conversations.
I used to love to go to Pilbro's.
Yeah.
Pilbro's and Shagwell. Well, those were the two restaurants. That was it. And
Well, Trails End,
Trails
and Bill's
End,
Inn.
and Bill's Inn was, God, what good food they had.
Did you have fun at Bill's Inn with
and
everybody
and
else?
the lakeside when Mr. Giordano had the
that's right.
best Italian
Tell us
food.
about, was it good? Yeah.
We loved to go there. Loved to go there. So.
And all of them
And
were
then
open.
everything changed. Developers came.
Yeah. When do you remember
And the
that
rest is
happening the most?
Probably in the 60s, you know, and 70s. It's, and I have to tell you, I experienced my first hurricane.
Oh, tell us.
In
about that.
1954, Hurricane Carol.
Right.
And we were driving down to Montauk from Amagansett in the morning.
And you had no warning?
In
No one
Bob's
knew it
old
was
Cadillac.
coming?
Yeah, they were telling us we were going to have a hurricane.
Oh.
And they weren't able to forecast hurricanes then like they do now. And the wind was blowing about over 100 miles an hour by the lighthouse. And we were headed into Montauk. And the rain, the wind was blowing the rain, drowned out the engine and Bob's old Cadillac.
Oh, my.
And we were stranded in the car up an Peak stretch.
Oh, boy.
And along came one of Republic aircraft trucks. They used to have their assembly business where down on Navy Road where all the co-op apartments are.
Right.
And he was really, really nice. And he stopped and we all, somehow or other, got into the truck.
Wow.
It was Bob and John and Billy and
Really?
myself.
Wow.
And
You all crammed
I don't
into
know
that
how
truck?
we ever made it into the village because the wind was blowing so hard.
Wow.
And
What a place to get stuck.
He drove us all the way down to the dock.
Wow.
And by that time, the wind was blowing. Oh, it was so, I was scared out of my wits.
Must have been
I really was.
terrifying to be
And
down
the
at
ocean.
the docks.
All the equipment had floated out of the buildings, Dick Fitzgerald. Refrigerators, the freezer floated out onto the dock.
What did Dick Fitzgerald have
He
then?
had, Dick had, what did they do? They had a business there, wasn't it? Fish business.
Dick and Bob?
And Bob, yeah.
And Joe Smythe, was
And-
he?
Oh,
He
Joe-
wasn't their
Joe was-
partner,
Joe
but he was
no,
out
wasn't.
here.
Joe was fishing. Joe used to fish at those times. Oh, but it was a horrific day. It was really.
Oh, it must have been terrible.
So the little lunch counter, the water had gone in there, and we had to take, the old augers and bore holes in the floor to let the water out.
Wow.
And Mike Nicoletti and myself spent the whole entire day making urns of coffee for all the boat.
Oh, I bet.
The boat
Oh.
captains, they were all trying to
Yeah.
tie their boats up and save their boats.
Was
That's
anyone
horrific.
killed down there at all?
No, a couple of boats, what was his name? His boat was washed up across the inlet.
Oh,
into the sand dunes.
really?
Yeah,
Wow.
that's how powerful
How
the wind
powerful
was.
it was.
It was
Wow.
really incredible.
That's incredible. Yeah.
So
Huh.
it was not a good day.
No, it must have been
And Montauk,
awful.
I think that was the hurricane Montauk was cut off.
Yes,
It was
that's,
an island.
yeah, at the bottom of Napeague. I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of Napeague,
Yeah,
it was
well,
cut
yeah,
off, eh?
Yeah, it was. The ocean
Yeah.
broke through there.
Yeah,
So
that must have been very scary.
that it was.
Boy.
For me, it was.
And you stayed down in the roundhouse?
yes,
That whole thing
yeah,
for
that's summer.
Wow.
It was amazing.
Everybody lived at the roundhouse that
Everybody
summer.
lived at the roundhouse
Huh.
that summer.
That must have been fun. It's a small house. How many of you? The whole Gosman family
The whole Gosman family.
and you?
But yes, and how many rooms?
No, but you would have been married to Jimmy
I was
then.
married. I didn't live at the
You
roundhouse.
didn't live at the
but-
roundhouse,
Well,
but-
practically.
Yeah,
I didn't
right. You
I
didn't
lived
sleep
there,
there,
but I
but
didn't
you,
sleep
you're
there.
right.
I used to go back. We used to drive back to the apartment in McGann. But I do remember I was terrified of snakes.
Yeah.
I still am today. I
Yeah.
really have a fear. And all those horrible fat black snakes
Oh,
around
had
the
washed
sand
up.
dunes.
Oh.
But they were, because it was so undeveloped.
Sure, of
and
course.
you'd run across them in the road.
Oh, right.
Awful.
Huh.
Absolutely awful.
Amazing.
So what else?
Amazing.
What else do I remember about Montauk?
Yeah, what boats? Now, what was the name of Jimmy's boat?
He ran the Chalou for Jim Lesnovsky, and then before he went to work for Mr. Aiken on the Nika.
Okay, so he just really ran one charter boat,
Yeah.
and then
And he had a little boat of his own in early years before I knew him. What was the name of that? Doesn't matter. It was just kind of a little boat he had for fun. That he fished whenever.
So where did Mr. Aiken keep his boat? Where did?
He kept his boat at the yacht club.
At the yacht club,
And
right.
all the best anglers. That was a real fishing club in those days.
It was, huh?
Not like it is today
Uh-huh.
at all. Everywhere.
Yeah.
We used to have the most wonderful times at the cruise bar
Really?
because all the members ate and drank in the cruise bar as well.
Wow.
And at the end of the season, they would have these wonderful parties out on the lawn, lobster parties.
Wow. This is all in the 50s and
All in the
60s.
50s and 60s. And Mr. Aiken used to make these huge, huge pots of hot buttered rum.
Wow.
It was the
Wow.
best.
Oh,
And we used to
that's
have lobsters, chowder, everything all served out on the lawn.
great. Wow.
At the old Deep Sea Club, it was.
The Deep Sea Club,
the Deep
too.
Sea Club
right.
was great.
Now, did you ever work there?
Jim and I ran the restaurant one
That's
summer.
right. That's right. I remember that.
It was the year that Mr. Olin turned over the Deep Sea to Woods Hole Oceanographic.
Oh,
And they didn't
okay.
have anybody to run it. What did I know about
Right.
running a restaurant?
You'd only worked in one for your whole adult
But
life.
we did very well. We were one
Uh-huh.
of the very few people who ever broke even.
Really?
Honest to God.
Really?
It was just incredible.
That's
But we
amazing.
worked so hard, but
Oh, I bet you worked hard.
we worked hard, and
Right, right.
Jim
Wow.
used to do all the repair work. And,
Yeah,
you know,
bet.
never got paid for it. That's why.
Sure.
That's why we made money.
Yeah, that's right, because you didn't pay yourselves, probably, right?
But they were good times.
Uh-huh,
They really were.
That was probably the only year you didn't work at
Everybody
Gosman's.
had fun in those days.
Yeah, right.
And now everybody's so busy. Nobody has even time to say hello to
I
anybody.
know, it's awful, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
But, and here we are, 53 years later, and look at Montauk.
Yeah, it certainly has changed.
Buildings everywhere,
Yeah.
houses.
Your
motels.
reflection is that it's for the worst,
Well,
or for the worse.
I think too bad they didn't have good zoning
Yeah.
laws in place when they started building.
Right.
Because Montauk would not look, the village of Montauk definitely, would not look like it does today.
Yeah.
I'm sure of that.
Be more picturesque.
Oh, it would have been
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
I mean, just think about it if Carl Fisher had survived and
Yeah.
lived
Mhm.
and developed Montauk. I wonder what it would really be like.
It's interesting. Oops, excuse me. I want to flip that off for one second. Oh, so anyway, yeah. So
what have we forgotten?
well,
A lot of stuff.
Yeah, a lot of
A lot
stuff.
of
Like I'd like. So you and Helen Hegner and Mary
Mary
ran
and Mike,
the
and Mary
Mike.
and Mike Nicoletti.
And who was the bartender in those
John,
days?
From Amagansett. How could I have forgotten John's last name?
It'll come to you. So, and then when did they start adding tables and what happened?
I forgot what year that was, and they just poured a concrete slab and put up some umbrellas and an awning over it, and it seemed to just
attracted people.
Absolutely, everybody loved.
Yeah.
Everybody loved to sit out there and eat steamed lobsters.
So you waitressed in those days?
Yes.
We
did
and
everything.
Helen,
We
and
did
you did everything. Yeah, came in the morning, did everything.
We did everything.
Right. It must have been a lot of fun.
Oh, it was.
You know,
it really was.
It
was fun and hard work.
Yeah. Who were the other captains down there at that time?
Captain Teddy Hegner. There was John Parsons worked on one of the boats.
Was he from the Amagansett Parsons?
No.
Okay.
Who else? Teddy Hegner. Oh God, I'll have to ask John. I have to ask John.
Well, John's on our list to interview too.
Oh, he is?
We'll talk to John and we'll talk to Roberta. We're going to interview them all, and Emmett too.
We
want to interview all of them.
Oh,
so
wonderful.
We're trying to make this
what I've
comprehensive.
forgotten, they can tell you. Because they can remember a lot more. John has never forgotten anything. I think John could tell you every day.
Really?
Of his life, what he did.
Really? Oh, well, we'll have to get a lot of tape for that.
I mean, those boys worked so hard.
Right.
They really worked hard.
Right.
They never had a summer off.
Yeah, no, I'm sure.
School, every other kid was on the beach. They were down there working.
Never went to the beach, never had time off
They really worked very, very hard.
Yeah.
So, but paid off.
Paid off, yeah. So it must have been interesting to see the whole dock area grow.
Oh, it was incredible.
When you went down, when there was just Gosman's, or was Fitzgerald's
Fitzgerald had.
Is that where Duryea's is now? And when did Salivar's come in?
Alongside of Gosman's old fish house.
Okay. Did it turn into the bar that the Watsons have now?
No, it was over on the
dock side.
On the dock side. It's so hard for me to remember.
Yeah.
I'll lie awake in bed tonight, and probably all of this will come to me.
Well, you can call me and have another interview. We're buying a camera for the library. So.
But John and Emmett will be able to tell you every detail of those days.
Yeah. We also have a list of John Behan and Johnny Raid and Ray Hagner to talk about and Wally Drobecker to talk about their fathers boat in the boat, and Paul Forsberg, and try to get them all to talk about their fathers in the boats.
Wally's father, my gosh, he was fantastic.
And Lester Behan
and Lester and his wife Marie.
All of
remember
those
kids. I remember all of those when they were little kids.
Right. Sure.
Yep. Incredible.
Yep.
Who else? I should have asked John before I came here to Rimmet. No idea.
That's okay.
No idea about all of this.
That's okay.
But we will remember.
When was the Tipperary built? Do you remember when?
I don't even remember what year that was.
Yeah.
At all.
But it was late in the it was in the 60s, or.
And it's to think of it. You were hardly aware of what was going on because you worked all summer long.
That's right.
And the minute the restaurant closed, we were here in Montauk for a couple of weeks, and then we went to Florida.
Right to Florida. So
came back in April, went right to work.
That's right.
And really and truly, I wasn't aware of what was going on around me.
Right. That's probably true. Yeah.
All this stuff was happening, and all of a sudden it was there. And one year went into the next.
That's right.
Before you know it, you're old and you're in the home stretch.
Yeah. What Essex Street? What was Essex Street like when you built your house there?
Oh, Essex Street was. Let me think. There was.
Who were your neighbors?
Ellie Prado's house was there. Marshall had built his house, and I think Eddie Volk's house was there. Nicky Andriani. They built their house about the same time we did. And of course the old house, Alphys, where Alphys and Giordano's, that was there. That was beautiful.
That, I know, it looks like it must have been a gorgeous house.
Do you know what you could have bought that house for back in the early 50s? I remember Mary and I going to look at it, the caretaker took us to see the house, and it was beautiful. Everything in the house. I think it was like less than $5,000.
Oh my goodness.
It was around $5,000.
Oh my goodness.
Or something, I may be wrong.
But in those days you didn't have
so,
$5,000 to
well,
spend on a house. Yeah, of course. Isn't that
Absolutely.
interesting?
It was a beautiful old house.
Alphys and Giordano, was that the Giordanos
yeah,
who had the
That
lakeside?
was one of the, no.
No, another
They didn't own
Giordano.
that house. It's Giardina. not
Giardina, that's right,
Giardina. I'm sure
Giardina.
you knew May.
Yeah,
Giardina
I did.
And her daughter.
Only vaguely, but
and,
I mean.
Michael, Alphys, and because they're in the building business in Jersey. So they did a lot of work on the house. But that was a beautiful old house.
Right.
So that house was there. Then Alvin MacDonald, Alvin built his house. Was Alvin's house there or not? It probably was.
Alvin and Edith.
Yeah.
And the
One-
Macy's,
oh,
did they live
wonderful
there
people.
then?
Those houses were all built, I think, after we
Right,
built.
okay.
Those houses were all built in the 50s and 60s, early 60s. Because, and then of course Jack Kraft moved the building
Right,
from town.
yes. Where was that in town, do you remember?
Where was that place? It was somewhere in the vicinity of back of the Memory Motel,
Oh, really?
or somewhere in that area. I'm not quite sure.
And he moved that up to Essex Street.
And they moved it. Oh, that was a big event.
I'll bet.
We were all out watching
I'll
the
bet.
day this house came through. That
Wow.
I'd never seen a whole house.
Like that moved.
Being
Wow.
moved.
Well, Pauline and Jack must have been on the other, John must have been in their house.
In their house, yes, they were.
Right.
They were there. and all the old Fisher houses.
Right.
The two
Right.
Fisher houses, they were there.
Yeah.
And of course the manor. Oh, the manor was beautiful.
You
I
could
was so
probably-
impressed.
Yeah.
I was so impressed with Montauk Manor. You walked in there. The thing I remember most were the beautiful chandeliers in the dining room. And then it was sad when it closed, and it just
Fell into disrepair.
fell into disrepair. And I wish they'd opened it and kept it as
I know, it's
a
too bad that
hotel.
it had to
It would be really
be
nice.
broken
I
up
think it
into
would have
smaller
been-
places.
I think it would have been successful
Yeah.
as a hotel.
Yeah.
Because anybody who was anybody came to stay at Montauk Manor. And back in those days. And I don't remember, I came after they had gambling at the old
Oh, right, at the
Deep Sea Club.
Right. That was after your time, or
Yeah.
before your time.
It was,
Yeah.
it was. But I remember a story that Owen Clancy's mother told me, Susie, and her daughter. Her daughter used to work at the...
She was out here then, right?
She was.
Okay.
Susie was out there. Well, and I guess they got word that the feds were coming, and her daughter, I can't remember which of her daughters, which of Owen's sisters, was working there, and she had the presence of mind, this is how the story goes, that she gathered up all of the gambling, the chips and everything, put them in the bags of the vacuum cleaners.
That's brilliant.
You'll have to check that with Owen.
That's great, yes.
Now there's a story.
We've got to do Owen
You have-
Clancy.
Owen Clancy
Yes.
will tell you more about the history of Montauk
yes.
and those times than
We
anybody
absolutely
else.
must get Owen.
Because he is, Owen is a storyteller.
He's
He's terrific.
yes.
He really is.
He's definitely on our list. We
So,
will get him.
oh gosh.
Isn't that wonderful?
It's,
Yeah. So the Crafts were there.
the Crafts
and then,
were there.
And with
And-
when you built your house, the Crafts had that house already.
I think, yeah,
there,
their house was there.
Okay.
The house you're in.
Yeah.
you're
And
living
Dr.
in now.
Robbins, was he in the Montauk?
Dr. Robin came, I think he built his house, I don't remember his house being there in the early 50s. Oh, I love Dr. Robin. We used to have wonderful, he loved to fish.
Did he?
And Jim would go down there to the office to have his blood pressure checked. And he'd come home an hour later, and they'd be out talking about fishing
Fishing.
out in the driveway for a whole hour.
Wow. That's
He
great.
absolutely he loved to fish. And his wife was such a great artist.
Was she?
She was, she really did.
Sylvia Robin.
She was very artistic, very artistic.
It's interesting.
It's, who else do I remember on our street? Not very many.
Yeah. And then Mary bought the windmill house. But that wasn't till
God, that was
middle of the 60s,
that was
right?
yeah, it was.
Uh-huh.
And I remember when they moved in there and there was no heat in the house.
Wow.
And they were bundled up.
Ooh, it's a cold house to be in with no heat.
I don't know. Until they got the system going, but it was that was.
But before that, she lived in the roundhouse all summer?
In the roundhouse in Amagansett.
And in Amagansett.
The house in Amagansett was a wonderful house.
Was it?
It was. It was really nice.
Yeah. Huh.
Really, really nice. We used to have wonderful times in that place.
Did you?
Yeah.
Who were the neighbors in Amagansett? I remember some stories
Well,
about
it was Alice Kelsey.
Alice Kelsey, and she was Perry Duryea's sister.
And
Right.
Alice, character to beat all character. Alice was. And Vern, her husband, used to work in supermarket in East Hampton. It was where, let me think, where was that supermarket? It's across from London Jewelers, you know, that group of buildings.
Oh, Bohax. It was Bohax?
Bohax old. And Vern
That was there when I came, too.
yeah.
It was still there.
Oh, that was wonderful. Wonderful supermarket.
And they used to work there, both of them?
So, no, Alice didn't.
He
Alice
did.
Didn't. So, Vern did. He ran the whole meat department. And Julia Loper and they people who were related to the Gosmans, who
the Parsons?
the Parsons who owned the lumberyard.
Right.
Vivian Parsons. And who else down the road? The Bistrians, Pete Bistrian, of course.
That's right. Sure. Sure.
Pete and Mary were great friends. And
Did you know Grandma Gosman on Main Street?
Oh, Grandma Gosman was a beautiful lady.
Yeah, was she?
She really was.
Yeah.
She was a sweet lady. She had the most beautiful complexion. Most
Really?
beautiful. She really was. She was a real lady. Very, 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 very nice.
And what did her husband do? What did they do? Do you remember what
I
they
don't
did?
even. Her husband, I never. He was dead.
Oh,
I think
okay.
when I came. When I came to Amagansett. And I don't know how many years I was there later when Grandma Gosman died.
Right.
She was a lovely lady.
Right.
She really was. But trying to think who else lived on.
Now, did Rob have brothers or sisters?
He had. I never remember meeting
His siblings?
his siblings except his some of his a couple of his cousins. Because they didn't live in the area. So I don't ever remember back in those days.
But he did have some.
Oh, he did,
They just
yes.
didn't live nearby.
And Ruth Gosman.
Oh,
I
she was his
remember,
sister.
I
Okay.
remember Ruth.
Right.
I think I met Ruth a few times. She didn't come
Yeah, often.
very often.
Yeah.
People didn't travel in those days.
Yes, right.
I mean,
right,
who owned a car
Right, right.
back in the 50s?
Right, right.
Rob let me drive his old Cadillac. I drove a car for about 4 years and didn't even have a license. I mean, don't put that
That's what
on
Montauk was
don't-
like, huh?
And everybody knew, all the police knew you didn't.
Right, right, right.
But
That's
there wasn't any traffic. I mean, how many cars?
right.
I went back to Ireland. Mary and I went back to Ireland in 1971.
That was
And
the first time
and
either of you went
Bridie
back?
and Bridie was in Ireland at the time, and my sister Una was home from England, and Bridie's daughter, and we took off on a trip around Ireland, and I was
Wow.
the only driver,
Oh my,
and that was in 1971.
oh my.
There was no traffic on the highways at all, and we started in Boyle in County Roscommon. We went through Sligo, completely around the coast of Ireland, up through Northern Ireland, across the northern coast of Ireland
Oh, what fun.
to Lairn. And I remember it was a fairly clear day, and you could see the coast of Scotland. part of it.
Oh my,
And
must
we
have been so
continued
wonderful.
all down the east coast of Ireland and crisscrossed across. I had, by the time we turned the car in, we had 3,100 miles on.
Oh my goodness.
And Ireland is a very tiny country.
Yes.
374 miles long by 175 wide.
Isn't that amazing? 3,100 miles.
But we never met a car. The only thing that, the big problem that we had was having to stop, and you had to get out of the car and shoo the sheep to the other side of the road and get the cows and the horses
Oh, wonderful.
out of the road.
Oh, wonderful. You must have had such a good time.
Oh, it was fantastic. We had a wonderful time.
Oh, I
And we
bet.
did the whole trip, I think, in 8 or 9 days.
Just stop at a pub here
Just
and there for
stop
dinner and stay in
we'd
an
stop
inn.
and we went into Northern Ireland. And that was the time when, in the days of Bernadette Devlin, when we went. We didn't know any better when we'd walk down Bogside in Belfast and didn't realize
Wow.
that we could have been shot.
Really, really.
Saw all the burned out buses
Amazing, amazing.
and bands of kids in the streets looking for trouble. And then all of a sudden you were aware of the British soldiers on the top of the roofs of the
Yeah.
building. Most of those buildings were flat roof buildings.
Yeah,
And it was a little upsetting to think in this tiny little country
yeah.
what was
It'd
going
be
on.
so terrible, yeah.
Oh, and I have to tell you, when we were going across the border, of course, we had to stop and they checked the car, open the trunk, look to see what, and we had very pleasant chat with the officers on duty.
Uh-huh.
And told them what our plans were. We're going in through Northern Ireland. We're going to visit Balik factory and so on and so forth, where they made the beautiful
Right.
Balik china. And coming back out, I just, it was the same. We came across at the same point, and I didn't bother to stop. I figured, well, they recognize the cars, the only one around, and I just kept going. And all of a sudden, sirens went off.
Oh no.
And then I said to Mary, I said, God, should I keep going or should I stop? Brady said, you better stop. So we stopped and backed up, and again, we had to go through the inspection, and said,
Oh.
okay.
They thought you were carrying guns across the border or something. Who
Who
knows?
knows? But we didn't realize we could, they had mined alongside some of the highways in those days, and if you pulled off, we could have hit a landmine
Oh
or
my
something. We could have
God.
been, we were really,
Yeah, of course.
we didn't know any better.
Yeah, naive, yeah.
But
yeah.
we survived.
Boy. Yep. Yeah.
We made it. We
Yeah.
made it.
Well, that's
So what else can I think about?
so now every year you go to Ireland to see
Every
everybody.
year I go back to visit
Uh-huh.
my family
Uh-huh.
because, we're all up in the big numbers.
Sure, yeah,
And
sure.
there's only, out of a family of 11, there's only 5 of us surviving.
Oh my, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
2 brothers and 3. I have 2 sisters, Bridie and Una and myself, and my brother Michael,
Right,
and my brother Pat. So
right, right.
we're all up in the big numbers.
There you go, yeah.
And Bridie was there this year for Bridie's 86th birthday.
Were you 86? Good for
She
her.
looks wonderful.
Isn't that
Out
wonderful?
playing bridge 3 nights a week till midnight.
3 nights a week till midnight.
Oh yeah.
I
They
couldn't
go out
do
at
that.
They go at 8:30.
You're
And they
kidding.
play. Everybody goes, but
My
when
goodness,
most
I'd have to
people are
sleep
going
all day
bed,
to be able to do that.
I couldn't bother her to
At
bed.
my age, I couldn't do that. It's wonderful.
No, she does. She looks really well.
Oh, that's great.
Really good for 86.
Ah, that's great.
Amazing.
That's great. That's absolutely amazing.
And so it's important, family is what's really important. And the older you get, the more important it becomes.
Yeah, right.
I know when you're young and you first get married, you're growing up and you're so busy making a life for yourself and you forget about family, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden your kids have grown up and
Yeah.
gone and you go back to your
So,
roots.
Yep. Yep.
It's really important, really important. But I wouldn't go back and live in Ireland.
You wouldn't, no, no. Too
Even
different for you
though-
now. Too different. You're too accustomed to living here,
It
right?
is, and even though the economy in Ireland has improved and living conditions are terrific and people are, really well off, well to do, the kids don't really have to come here anymore
Right.
to
right,
make money. They come to have a good time
right.
in
right,
the summertime.
Right.
We know
right.
that.
Yep. They do. That they do. And
But,
they have changed.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
And it's, and I'm glad
Yeah.
that things have improved for the better because
There, yeah.
it was hard. It was hard times when we were growing up, kids.
Uh-huh.
But we never thought we were poor, because we lived on a farm, produced your own food. All the men in my family were tailors.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the best in Ireland, I might add.
Yeah, I'd like to hear about that, actually.
My father my grandfather died when he was 44 years of age. And he had, as I understand it, he had choked on a salmon bone.
Really? Your grandfather?
My grandfather.
Uh-huh, your father's father.
And then my father had to leave school, and he went to Sligo. Served his apprenticeship in the tailoring at the age of 13.
Wow.
And then came back home to Cloncairn, where we all grew up and were born, and worked with two of his brothers in the tailoring business. And people didn't come to them in those days to have their clothes made. This is how the journeyman tailor came into being. They went in the old pony and trap, or whatever means of conveyance they had, whether they walked. I don't imagine that in those days they even had a bicycle.
Right, right.
And took the material to the person who needed a suit made, and they would measure them, clear off the kitchen table, lay the material out, cut out the suit of clothes, and would stay there and sew the thing out and fit the person, the customer, and
come and stay in your house and sew you a suit, and then
then after that they would go to the person's house who needed their clothes made.
Right.
And then afterwards there was an addition built onto the house where we grew up, and it was turned into a tailor shop. And then everybody came.
Would come to him. Yeah.
But they were really good. My brother Tom was fantastic. He went
Really?
and served his time in London and Savile Row.
Really? Really?
He was
Wow.
fantastic
Wow.
tailor. Unfortunately, he died at a very young age, at
Really?
38.
Oh my! How tragic of illness.
He died the same year Bridie's husband died.
Oh my!
One was 38, one was 36.
My! And what did they die of?
Bridie's husband had he died of diphtheria. Picked it up from livestock. He was
Oh boy!
overseer on an estate outside of Bagnallstown where they lived.
Oh boy!
And that was just before penicillin.
Yeah. Wow.
Had penicillin been...
Had it been around, he would have been all right.
And he died in November.
Uh-huh.
And guess what? In December, who came down with diphtheria? Me.
Oh no!
Because I had gone to stay with Bridie.
Oh my!
And we were the only two people in the whole town.
Oh my!
Perfect. Fortunately for me, that I'm here talking to you, I had penicillin available to me just in the nick of time.
A couple of months later.
Yeah.
Oh, isn't that?
And I was spent 7 weeks in an
Unbelievable.
isolation ward in
Wow.
Nason, County Kildare.
Wow. And how old were you?
God, I was, let me see, what was I? That was in 1946, I think it was.
Wow.
1945.
Wow, 23 or something.
6.
Yeah.
Or maybe before that.
Did you go down to work
it was
with
probably 1944,
Uh-huh.
I think.
Wow.
I just went to stay with Bridie, the kid, she had 4 was left, 4 young children, and my brother had
Oh my God, poor thing, yeah.
7, so there was
Wow.
11.
And what did Tom die of?
He went to visit my brother-in-law at the hospital, and it was back in the days when they didn't have respirators, the equipment they have today. They had the old iron lungs,
Yeah.
this hideous-looking machine.
Oy.
I can't describe it. And it made this horrific noise, It was like these paddles up and down, breathe for the patient.
Yeah.
And I guess it affected him so much that he never felt well.
Really?
From that day to the day he died a year later.
Wow.
He just seemed to, I don't know.
Huh.
It was,
And he had 7 children.
He had 7 children.
Wow.
The youngest was 6 months old.
Oh my.
He died, and Bridie the same.
And what was his wife's name?
May.
May, of course. So that was Val's mother.
That was Val's mother.
That's right, sure. Huh.
I still miss Val.
Yeah. That was a rough,
It was hard.
so he had a rough childhood. She must have had a rough time.
Well, that was my official duty.
Yeah,
Taking care of all my little nieces and nephews.
That's right.
And believe it, that was why I decided to come to the United States.
Marys were grown up enough for you not
Yes,
have to
they
be taken care of them.
They
all
didn't
the
need
time.
taking care
That's
of.
right.
They took care of themselves.
That's right.
We're very
That's
capable.
right.
Very,
How
very
interesting.
capable.
How interesting. Yeah. Huh.
So,
Boy. Yeah, so your father was a pretty well-known tailor.
Oh, he
And
was.
was he not a candidate for the Guinness Book of World Records?
he was, and they haven't. I am sure that he really was the oldest practicing tailor in Ireland. Because I have some of the literature, or somebody did research on it, and nobody has ever come up with anybody they know of who was his whole
Longer.
entire life. He, from age 13 until about 2 years before he died, he was still, when he was 90,
Isn't that amazing?
could
work.
sit down at the sewing machine. And
Honestly, isn't
was
that
incredible.
amazing? That's amazing.
so of
Absolutely
course, my brother
amazing.
Michael now still,
He's still,
Michael is 83,
wow,
and he's still a very good tailor.
is he?
He doesn't do as much anymore,
No,
but
no.
he's very good.
That's amazing. He has a shop, doesn't he?
He does.
Yeah.
So anything I need altered,
That's
I take it to Ireland, Michael. He does it for me.
That's wonderful. That's great. Well, Teresa, this is really
No, it
fascinating.
was fun. I wish I could remember.
Yeah.
I'll probably, when I go home, I'll remember a lot more, and I'll remember all the names, and I'll remember the name of the boats.
Well, what I'd love to do someday also, aside from having you individually, I'd love to sit down with you and Roberta and John.
Oh, yeah, it would be great.
And we'll
Because
then the stories will
Yeah.
will flow. The
It
the
will-
actual
oh, yes,
stories.
because,
We'll do
God.
that with a video camera to
Yes.
remember Gosman's
Yes.
from
It
Gosman's doc from the
would be- it
beginning.
would- that
and
would be super.
That would be fun, wouldn't it? But
really-
this
it
is
really
valuable
would.
to us too to have
It really
you.
would be great.
That'd be great. Yes.
Yeah, I
yes.
remember the day that they decided to build the main restaurant,
Right.
and the bulldozer came in and just went to work and knocked all the old buildings down in a matter of a couple of hours. They were
Amazing. It must have
flattened.
been. Yes, yes. What a phenomenal thing to see.
It was, and then when I went to Florida that winter, we came back in April, and the building was half completed.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. I
was-
remember
it
that
was
was
amazing.
that was
Mhm.
I came the last year of the old restaurant I worked there.
I can't
So-
remember what year it was, but the first motel that was built, the Driftwood on Napeague Stretch.
Oh, right.
And then every spring we'd come back, and before we'd be coming through Amagansett, I said to Jim, I wonder, what are we going to see?
Right.
What are we going to see when we get on the
Right,
stretch?
right.
And another motel would have been started.
Unbelievable.
And it just-
Unbelievable.
Took off.
Unbelievable.
Same thing in the village.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But that's progress.
That's what happens. That's right.
progress.
That's right. Huh.
Well, I hope you can watch
Well,
this.
Oh, this is wonderful. Thank you very much. This has been absolutely great. Yeah.
It would.
yeah.
I'd love really to get together with.
Yeah, we'll do that.
With Roberta.
That's a whole other.
The whole
Yeah.
family.
Yes, yes.
It
and
would be-
It'd
that
be
would
fun
be,
to have Billy in on it, and everybody
Oh,
do
'cause they can
remember.
remember.
They can all remember things. I'd love to do that.
That would be really fun.
Okay. Well, I think we're done, huh?
So now we
can
can
you
say
think of
whatever.
anything you
Now
want
we
to
can
say?
say whatever we please. We're
That's
off
right.
the air.
Yeah, now you're off the air. Now you can say what you really think. Here, let me unpin you.